Cool. So I am joined with the beautiful Lynette.
Hi.
Lynette Leaf, and we're going to get into how we've found each other and the journey that you've been on. But before we do, can you just introduce yourself and what role you're currently in now?
So me and my work self. Currently, I'm in an assistant principal role, working at a large further education sixth form college down in London. That's on an interim basis. I actually work through my own consultancy. It's called Leaf Consultancy Limited.
Yes. And tell us about this role that you're in. What does it mean to you?
Oh, wow. I think one thing that I love about my AP role is the specialisms that I can bring to the role and the contribution that I'm able to make to the college, particularly on that larger scale. That's one thing that's been really important to me in my career. So I'm actually the assistant principal specifically for technical and vocational education. So that covers about 70% of the college, and it's, you know, everything in terms of anything other than sort of your A-level history or geography kind of subjects. So health and social care, early years education, media, construction, engineering, business, young people wanting to progress to university or into apprenticeships in those sort of sectors. So I'm currently, for example, working on implementing the college's T-levels. A lot of people wouldn't have heard those terms if you don't work in education, but it's one of the biggest reforms we've had in technical education in about the last 20 years. So it's quite major.
Yeah.
And colleges have got some real adapting to do to start on this journey. So yeah, it's just really exciting to be part of it.
Fantastic. So before you got this job and you started this role this year, so we're in 2020, we're talking
August.
In December, you got this role?
August I started, with New Vic in August.
Yeah, so it's very much during the lockdown, the pandemic was at its highest, and competition for jobs was extremely high. So what role was you in before?
So prior to sort of starting out on this new journey, this consultancy, I was in an operations management role. I'd been in that role and been in sort of the operations middle management position for about 7 years, across a couple of colleges and a couple of different sectors. So I'd managed business, hospitality, travel, tourism, hair, beauty, some cross-college English and maths, health and social care, special education needs. And I just found, particularly in my last role, that, you know, within a really short period of time, I was feeling like I'd outlived the job. And in a fairly short period of time, I was doing or getting those impacts that I really thrive for, being able to have an impact on young people and their curriculum and the staff and their lives and their worlds of work and whatnot, and to make those improvements. But like I say, short-lived, because once I'd done that, I'd find that I then felt stifled. And that's not because the organisation I was in was purposely trying to stifle me, but because I had outlived those roles.
It's like your mind was like thinking
somewhere
ahead.
else, somewhere else, and I was trying to fit into something that just I'd outgrown, I think, a long time ago. And I had, for about 1.5 years prior to making the decision to leave my last middle management job, I had actually been through a couple of interviews for other sort of quality head of director roles, and was sort of always successful into getting the interviews and never quite made it.
And did you have any feedback?
I did, yes. I had, and I think what was really challenging is that largely feedback was always really positive.
Oh, yeah.
Telling me good things.
I hate that.
Telling me good things, but not really helping me grow the capacity that they said I needed. And that's what I found hard.
Was any of the feedback helpful at all? Like, did anybody say this is where you could improve, or made you reflect, or anything?
I did once have a discussion. It was the last time I went through a sort of interview process for a senior level position, and the colleague feeding back to me, somebody I still have great respect for today, is absolutely fantastic. And he was really honest and open, and also talked about what I need to do to make the difference, so that if I go to interview again, I can answer in a way that would tick the box, if you like, or would get me the position. And that person tried to do that within that job role as well, tried to give me those extra responsibilities and those additional projects that I took on. I obviously took to them and wanted to do them. So yeah, that's probably the best feedback I've ever had.
So
it was very interesting though, because it never quite focused on the things that I think have made me more effective today.
Yeah.
So I thought I was getting good feedback, but actually, and that person was trying to do their best, but now I know what's made the difference.
Yes.
Now I know how to frame myself. I realised that actually I could have gone and done all of that, what I believe to be good feedback, and I'm not sure my outcome would have been any different.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And to anybody who doesn't know kind of the levels and the hierarchy within education, while you knew you was ready for your next level position and more responsibility, and to be able to create the impact that you knew you wanted, and therefore you would need to kind of go up in terms of the hierarchy, what was that leap like tangibly? What was it going from and to in terms of responsibility? So to be the kind of middle senior manager that you was at the time, to what you are now, assistant principal.
Okay,
what is the difference?
So the difference is that sort of middle manager role is working on the day-to-day operations. Lots of responsibility and lots of decision making, but actually a lot of things are prescribed to you, and you're working directly with the team to bring a curriculum to life. You will have involvement with inspections and with other sort of external college audits, and you will manage a budget, but that's general stuff in operations jobs, regardless of the sector. So you sort of typical runnings, and including some, forward thinking and forward planning and visioning and team development, because you might manage a team of 20 teachers who all need to be effective for their students. The difference at senior level is that you're involved in that larger cross-college, wider scale decision making about how external policy is enacted within the organisation, which then filters down to how middle managers might, how they might prioritise, or the things they might want to work on. You're part of the strategy that drives forward the college's quality processes. So again, it's really influencing for those middle managers and for many more teachers and for many more students what curriculum looks and feels like. And there's also a keen responsibility in senior leadership to stay abreast of what's happening nationally and globally in education and in the sectors that we serve. A student or young person studying at college to go into the economic sector requires future skills and needs to be skilled, yes, and there are certain academic skills they need, but the specific things they need differ to that student who wants to go and work in the health sector. So senior leadership has a responsibility to keep an eye on what that looks like nationally and globally, so that we can be at the forefront of delivering curriculum that really does mean our young people can, that they've got the best opportunities and that they can compete. It's competitive. We know jobs are competitive. FE trains people between the ages of 16 to 18, then you've got your adult provision, but essentially they train and learn with you, then they're going out to compete for jobs. So what you do with them is quite important.
So really, the role that you was applying for was like, you would be then managing people that were doing what you was doing. So it's like you was literally going to be that person who was going to go, I've just done that, but now I'm doing this. And you knew you was ready for it. And it was about demonstrating that interview. That was literally the only thing stopping you from getting the role that you knew that you was ready for, but just proving it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us exactly why you decided that you might need some help for your interview, because that's how our paths crossed, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It was going for those interviews and having that feedback, and nothing really changing. And I started to think, just to be really blunt, I know that, and I know I can do it, but I'm not quite sure I'm demonstrating that. I started to look within. I wasn't quite sure that I was demonstrating that and properly representing myself either. I wasn't sure I really knew how to be honest. And I got a little bit tired of the application game, of the having, draining yourself thinking about what an employer might want to hear or see. And it got tired, like I say, and I got frustrated, if I'm honest. And I also knew that current job and that level I was working at, I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It was more about that. I couldn't do that anymore. And I actually felt, I think in any sector, somebody doing the job should want to do the job.
Yeah.
And, I'm a public sector worker. So I think that's really important. In colleges, it's public funded education. It's important that people want to do those jobs. And I knew I was doing a good job, but felt that maybe that opportunity is for someone else. There needs to be change there. It wasn't for me anymore. So I sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I just needed some help to get out of it, really.
Yeah. And what was it about me that kind of made you choose to contact me as opposed to another person?
Because what I like, I think it's about what you see, isn't it? And how what you see and how something resonates with you. And one thing that I know I am, and I always will be, is sort of myself. I'm quite young and bubbly, and I do work in an environment that can get quite corporate, but I've never quite gotten bogged down with that, because I just don't want to. I just won't. I know that would make me unhappy, and I've actually had jobs before where I have complied and become corporate, and it's made me unhappy. So I liked that, everything that I read about you, your branding, your what you said you did, you're young, it seemed fresh, it seemed current, and I thought I'll be able to learn something there. I think, there's a risk, isn't there, of these sort of services around sort of job coaching and training can, again, just become fitting in a box. And like I say, I felt like that's where I was stuck, and I wanted to get out of that.
Yeah. And so you contacted me and we had some conversations, and I knew straight away that, my word, you have got some serious skills and experience. And for me, it was very practical. You just needed a way of presenting who you are, what you stand for, to kind of package up all your experience in a lovely kind of presentation of all the things that not only you can do, but what you can do for these colleges who would be lucky to have you. So that, and I was so looking forward to that. And then you was like, I've also got 2 interviews, and they were like next Tuesday or something. So for anyone who's watching, Lynette contacted me with actually interviews in the pipeline, but there wasn't like 3 weeks in the pipeline or anything like that.
They were like,
we literally had like a week and a half to kind of factor in all the preparation sessions. And I knew that what she would benefit from was some real like deep personal branding, pulling out the expert status, pulling out the kind of core offer, and that needed a good 5 to 6 sessions. So we crammed them in, didn't we? And
we did. We worked really hard, didn't we? We worked really hard. But, Judy, that was a turning point week for me. That was an evolutionary week for me. I evolved in that week. Things changed.
Yeah, I saw it. And this is what I always ask, for anybody who works with me, just just be ready for the transformation, because
show up,
we're gonna go deep. As long as you're willing to do it, we'll be able to pull out so much good stuff. So one of the first things we did was to go through kind of who you are, what you stand for, and to anyone who's watching, what are kind of some of the techniques or some of the things that you benefited from, or things that you remember about that process of just kind of forget about the job for the moment. Let's just talk about you and who you are.
That's what I remember about the process. What you just said there, forget about the job for a moment and let's dig deep. That's it, because you can get really embroiled, like I say, in what a job description says and what their company strategy is or what it is they're looking for, and you try and fit to that. And in those first couple of sessions, what was, like I say, like a light bulb evolution for me is that we, you know, for example, the values activity about your personal values and really digging deep and then exploring those words. And it took me back to my education and some experiences I'd had. And then it made me realise and go, oh, actually, yeah, that's where that desire to impact the lives of young people who are less fortunate, that's where that came from. And that's actually driven lots of these improvements I've made. And, you know, it took me back to some of my own experiences in school and some of the challenges that I'd faced, and that I never want young people to feel or experience that, which again has driven me to want to make improvements. And it's something that always keeps me close to students as well. And, you know, we discovered that in our sessions, didn't we? One of my what do we call them, is it USP, or you know, one of those things that are about me is that I am, you know, I've been able to maintain as a middle manager and senior leader the perspective of the young person. And it made me realise where that came from. So for me, those first sessions, you know, about the really looking into yourself were, like I say, evolutionary, because I stopped looking at a job description and started to look at myself and what I can offer and what makes me unique and what has made me successful. It's quite often you can be asked a question about how you made an impact and you talk about process and forget about yourself. And really, if you're really successful at something, it's because you're good at it. So having that opportunity in that week to push all of, even, you know, taking all the examples and the successes, pushing all of that away and going, actually, it's because it comes from some of your own root values and ethics, that has just changed the game for me. And subsequently, in the other things that I've been involved in since, you know, I moved into consultancy and since I got this senior position.
It's like you stepped into who you was always meant to be. And that's why I always start at that point, because it helps you to put meaning to your experiences. And when you can link it all together and be like, that's why I do that. This is why I'm good at this, because it comes from here. I didn't even learn it. I just had it. You know, the people are just sat on so many naturally given, born skills. And that's the gift at interview, by being able to say, I didn't just acquire this. I've been doing this from, you know, from this point. This is why I'm successful at doing X, Y, and Z. So we started there, and that was such a great process and allowed us to put meaning to what we did. And then we did go revert back to the role description, but we looked at it really, really critically, didn't we? So one of the kind of exercises that we do is we go through the role description, but then we think like the employer. So we put ourselves into the shoes, and it's like, okay, let's read between the lines here. What do they really want? Why have they actually put this in the person's specification? And it was from those conversations that you was like, oh yeah, I have got this experience and I'm going to use this example. So the process.
What I really liked about that bit of the process as well, what I really liked about that is the looking at the job description and coming away from a descriptive word or, you know, a descriptive sentence that you often try and answer to putting them all into different categories. In my example, there was, you know, strategic leadership, curriculum design, and putting them into those camps. I found that really helpful.
Yeah.
And I actually use that when, you know, like I do a lot of report writing, and I have to look at a lot of large scale documents and government documents and interpret them. So I actually apply that skill in some of my work.
Yeah. What I love is when I'm working with clients and we're trying to sort out all their experiences, because what we do is we get to a point where we've got so many achievements, so many successes. It's like, we're going to have to prioritize here because you've got too many. And I always say, you know, your interview preparation document needs to work for you. So you add to it and you sort it out however you want. Did you have it on like a spreadsheet or something, or like you had it really organized?
Yeah, which is a reflection of me. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yes,
like, just, you know, if it was me, I'd probably have it in like a word document or something really simple. But where you had it all together, like totally strategic. But what was lovely is that, as you say, once you put it in themes, a lot of your successes, a lot of your experience can be pulled and transferred to so many different areas. They all relate. And that process allows you to, when you're in an interview situation, the questions can be so like, name a time when you've done this, this and this, and you're like, that's a bit of that, that's a bit of that. But because you've gone through the process, you can be like, this example is the best one because it cuts through all of these different themes. It's going to be a more rounded answer because you know strategically what examples to bring that are going to answer the question. So
I found that really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm so impressed doing that with you. There was so
I loved that, and it's helped. Like I say, so I think, you know, when I said that for me that week and those skills were a bit, you know, somewhat revolutionary, and I evolved because actually, and I think I said this to you at the end of it, you know, what we did that week and what you do in your program, what I found is that it's not about just coaching for a job. There's so much more that has made me more effective in my life. Yeah. So, you know, I sit in board meetings and have to sit in senior leadership team meetings, and they can be quite heavy. And, you know, we have a responsibility at that level, don't we, to, you know, call it out if you need to. And you have to respond to those questions sometimes where it's being called out. And I can do that now with anything. Yeah. You know, I can take that same approach where I get a minute to process things, pick out what they're actually asking for, then I know where to go to answer the question. Yeah. Whereas ordinarily, if we've taken it back to an interview process, I think what I've done before, which I'm sure a lot of people do, is look at that job description, try and guess the questions they're going to ask you, and then prepare an answer for that question. Yeah. But the truth is, I've got no idea what they're going to ask you on the day. Exactly. And if it's a senior position, and if they're doing their senior team right, they'll ask you anything they want. And they'll challenge you. They might have some pre-scripted questions, but actually, if they get an answer from you and they either want to hear more or not happy, they're going to ask you more questions. Yeah. So if you've prepared in this scripted way,
you're going to be,
don't stand a chance. Yeah. Whereas your methods, you can just draw on yourself, which is just
that's
I've used it in so many other ways.
Yeah. So when we're preparing for interview, my intention is to get you to a point where you absolutely trust in your instincts. You don't need to memorize anything really. You just need to know how to conjure up the example in your mind and just know how to bring it to life. So there's nothing recited, nothing that's been like regurgitated that you've overly prepared for. It's like, know my stuff. It's all there.
Yeah,
bring on the question.
There's the knowing your stuff, Jude. But like I say, I think what stood out for me is there's the knowing the stuff. But what your sessions did for me is also knowing yourself and your true self. Yeah. Because whilst you answer that question, you need to bring your true self.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're really busy and you're at work and you've got a busy job, you can just get bogged down in that busy job. and not become someone else, but you become the job. And actually, when you go to a job interview, you need to bring yourself, not the job role.
Yes. Thank you. You're doing this for me. Thank you. Because that is the point. And that's normally where people start. They're like preparing for the job. And that's why I've got such an issue with a lot of the advice out there, because it's like, this is what the employer is looking for. If you know, and it comes from this like recruitment perspective, and it's like, wait a minute, they actually just want to know what the person is like, because they're making a decision of whether they actually like you and whether they think that they can see you doing this role. It's not just about the skills and experience.
What you just said there about what some of these large, the large recruitment companies, what these, your sort of typical job coaching company might do, is also like, there's a right answer. There isn't a right answer, because everybody who interviews is going to answer that question differently. There is no right answer. And I've never felt more confident to show up to an interview process now, or actually ask me a question and I might tell them something that I know even they don't like to hear, but I know I can tell them that. I can tell them what I would do about this, and I can tell them the national context. I've sort of learned how to respond honestly, instead of potentially thinking that's a sticky subject in our sector, I'm going to answer it this way.
That confidence just so shines through in your own abilities. So once we've got to all of that stage, so we've gone through your personal brand, you know who you are, you know what your perspective is, you know what your successes are, we know the role, we know what they're looking for, we know what your core offer is, what makes you unique. It's after all of that, then we go through the actual technique that I coach. Now, obviously it's called the interview story impression technique, and it has its own technique, but it's, when we work together, we amend it. We make sure it serves your purposes and works for you, because that would be a contradiction if I was like, I've got a technique, you've got to fit into it. It's about it working for you. And what you've just said about the national context, that was the bit that was actually slightly different. And that came from you, of knowing that you needed to add a bit that also shows what you're going to do for them, because this was your next level position. It's not even like you could just answer the question really well. You've almost got to do a little bit extra here in saying, I'm ready. I might not have actually been working at this level yet, but my word, I'm capable of doing it. I want it, and this role is going to be perfect for me, and I'm going to be perfect for you. So the technique had to do quite a lot. It really did. Like, you had to kind of have a game plan. So your technique was your game plan.
Yes.
And if anybody wants to see the technique, then there's the training, there's the step-by-step guide. But in a nutshell, what would you say the technique did for you?
What did it do for me? It allowed me to shine and to be able to show myself off, I think, in the right way, and to do it truthfully to myself, and to bring that piece of me in the answer as well. I liked that the technique provided that opportunity to draw on, like you've just said, the national context and the wider, bigger agendas that I am at the forefront of, that I'm involved in, that I know about, that ordinarily, when someone asks you a question, I would have just answered the question. Well, after your technique, after your coaching and mentoring, I didn't just answer that question. I told them what I know about the national context. I told them things they probably should be thinking about, pointed out, the importance and the impact strategically, and gave really good quality examples, and was able to wrap it up with how I would do that in their context, and in a shorter time, probably much more succinct than in previous interviews, where I probably just waffled on for ages about one singular example. This was so much richer.
Yes. Yeah.
So much richer.
Yeah. That is literally what it's supposed to do.
Like I say, for me, it's added a different, it's improved my communication generally, because I'm able to draw on that technique when I'm in certain meetings that can be challenging, or when I need to get a point across that's actually got to include a lot of high level information without turning off the governors that I'm speaking to, or whoever else it is I'm speaking to, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's helped me in a lot of ways, Judy. A lot more than just the
I'm really
interview
happy
stuff.
about
A lot
that.
more, yeah.
It is, and it comes from the kind of principles that just because they haven't asked it, just because they
Doesn't
haven't
mean they
asked
don't
you
want to
the
know.
question, doesn't mean they don't want to know. And because an interview is your opportunity, it's not a test, it's an opportunity for you to show yourself. So rather than waiting for them to ask you questions, you just use the questions strategically as a way of selling yourself. So you're taking back
That's a really good,
control.
really good way. Instead of waiting for them to ask you, what you're doing through your technique is actually giving them a lot more than what they've asked for.
Exactly. So I'm so glad that, you know, we was able to kind of use it in a way that gets all the best bits so that you can really sell yourself. So obviously it worked. You've got your job. However, it wasn't just about that interview, was it? What else did they get you to do?
Oh, so on the interview day we had the 2 interviews, didn't we?
Yeah.
So the sort of bigger interview day included a couple of activities. And one of them was around leadership style. And honestly, I opened it and read it, and I was just like, this is amazing, because it's literally all of the work we've just done, as well as the personal branding stuff. We did the leadership branding, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was just there. You know, it was all there. And again, I think normally in that scenario, I would have answered the question by thinking about the typical leadership styles that are described in FE and just the typical stuff that you talk about. Whereas instead, in that activity, in that task, I know that I brought myself.
Yeah. And that's why this whole preparation gets you ready for any interview scenario, whether it was a presentation they asked you to deliver, whether or not it was a test of like what you had, a leadership style, or whether it was a, you know, a hypothetical question or a scenario, a role play. Some of them get you to do stuff like that. I just think
it's not for me.
Too much. I've had one of those before. They've done a scenario, the balloon scenario, where it's kind of like everybody's a doctor or something, and you've got to negotiate who's gonna.
Oh, I love those ones.
Oh,
I like
I
those
cannot
ones.
bear those ones. It's like,
Love a negotiation task.
Just
I love
ask
a
me,
negotiation
am I a
task.
nice person, or am I like an assertive person? Just ask me, I'll tell you. Do you know what I mean? Don't put me through a case study. But, you know, what it does is it allows you to deal with any situation, because you're going to go in there not trying to be somebody else.
Being yourself.
And then you can walk away with your head held up high. They do not choose you when you have given yourself. Then my kind of perspective is that wasn't the right role.
Wasn't the one.
It couldn't have been the right one. Or if they gave you the role based on you trying to be this person, then you're going to have to.
Then it wouldn't be the role for me either. Yeah.
You have to pretend all that, you know, for however long you're in the role. So this role that you've got, it is no surprise that you are excelling in this role, because it's the right role for you. So tell us how you have developed in a short time. So we're in December now. You started in August. What have you been doing that is aiding your career right now?
Wow. Well, I'm doing that job, obviously. I'm doing that role. I have started to build my business, build my consultancy. As well as that role, I've joined a couple of groups. I'm a member of a leadership group in further education that is looking specifically at some national issues we have, and a large national agenda around race in education. And I'm part of that group, and have since joined their specific senior leaders group. We're launching a sort of senior leaders research program as part of that, so I'm going to be on that. one of a few key people who are finding that national data and that national information to take it to government, essentially. This group, the Black Further Education Leadership Group, are lobbying directly with the government, and we're making a lot of traction. It's really good. Our education minister has spoken about us. There's a large organisation who support the professional development of further education. They have, as a result of the work that's happening with the Black Further Education Leadership Group, they've started to make some change. They actually needed 2 new trustees. They had 2 trustees and board members who had stepped down, had finished their term. So I thought, I'm going to give that a go. And I interviewed for that. I sent my application off and I got an interview and I was successful. So I've joined the board at the ETF, which is fantastic. And they're an absolutely excellent organisation. The ETF, what they do is amazing. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. And, you know, just to say around that, what was fantastic about that and that interview is that prior to the interview, again, I think it's because you've had these ways of working for years where to prepare for an interview, you prepare by reading loads of documents about the, you know, putting a lot in what's external rather than going internal. And for this interview, I didn't do that either. And I remember the day before saying to my partner, I feel like I haven't prepped enough, but really I don't know what else I can do or say other than what I already think. And I thought, no, just be yourself. And I was. You know, I spoke really honestly in that interview and had some really good conversations with the panelists and was successful. So that's fantastic. You know, to know that you have been successful in a job based on me and my expertise and what I want to bring is great. And actually, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that stuff, Judy, if we hadn't done our work. I don't think so at all.
Well, I think that you are literally, like many people that I work with, you've got so much within you, and I see it straight off, and I get excited because I'm like, I hope you realize just how much you can do with this. Like, you could literally do whatever you wanted, which brings us on nicely to our LinkedIn strategy session that we did. So I do something with clients, and that is to align all of their social media, their profiles, the things that is going to really elevate them on brand. So we have to like have done all the branding and all of the identifying your expert status and your core offer and all of that, because that makes it so much easier to kind of know how to strategically use LinkedIn as a platform. You knew that you needed your LinkedIn to be kind of upgraded now that you've got your business, you're a consultancy, you're going places in terms of what it is that you want, what impact you want to have. Not to mention, you want to be able to future-proof your career so that you can be using it to make the relationships that you need to, so that if you ever needed to have another job or anything like that, it'll all be there for the taking because you've preempted it. So tell people about how we approached the kind of, what did I do in terms of the strategy LinkedIn sessions that we did?
What I liked about that, and a part of what we went through in the process was, like you've just talked about, thinking about brand. Because actually, you know, your personal values, your sort of my leadership values and brand values are slightly similar, but there is a distinct difference in what I believe in terms of job offer I'm going to offer, if that makes sense. And brand and what I'm going to bring in terms of business. And, you know, from in the world of the world that I'm working in a world of consultancy, it's important that that is represented correctly and accurately, because, you know, one of my values that I think came out in all of the work we did was around integrity and accountability. So it's really important to me that what I'm saying is correct and true. So again, those activities, thinking about the, you know, the work that we did, thinking about your brand, what you stand for, what your business will do for the employer, for example, I found really, really useful.
Yeah.
And even didn't we do the activity around the visualization activity?
Yeah.
That was brilliant, because it got me seeing myself doing it, seeing myself being that business person.
Yeah. So,
and providing that offer.
So just if anybody's watching, obviously everybody will have a career goal, a career goal in mind, or a dream career. And in August, when you was applying for the role, your goal at the time was, let's get on to this next level job.
Yeah,
Because we've got the next level job. And then it's like, we need a vision. We need some goals beyond the goals, a vision beyond the vision. So this is where I really needed for you to just take away any fears, any limiting beliefs, and just go for it.
Yeah,
and
what do I really want?
Yeah, so I set you that visualization activity, and then also we had a whole session, and I was really trying to provoke you and push you to just aim really high. But you have already, it's like you got permission to, you've already clearly been thinking about these things. It was just about verbalizing them and saying, this is what I want, you know. And they were amazing goals. All of them are going to make such a great impact. But it didn't take long. Like, we did that activity.
Then it started to happen.
Before you got onto this point. And we set it for, what was it, like over the next 3 years or the next year?
I think we had the specific goal around sort of wider contribution, national contribution, if you like, or being involved in some sort of bigger agendas and taking that message forward, the beliefs and message that I have. And I think that was a 3-year goal. And in that session, you actually said, I think you're going to get there before. I think you're a bit closer than you believe you are. And I think you said a year, and then, I think it happened.
Which isn't surprising. I just find it, I just think it's so exciting. It means that you can do anything. And that's why I keep talking about the power of LinkedIn as well, because that's where people are all, there's podcasters, there's events, there's people who are experts. You're an expert. There's no reason why you can't carve your own path as to whatever it is that you want to achieve. And the minute that you start to get clear on what that is, it's like you're calling it forth. And that's why I'm so, with the universe, and there's that whole dimension about, calling forth what you want. And it's just really exciting to see, because are you the youngest trustee, or you definitely?
I'm not sure. I think that this particular organisation have been, honest in wanting to be more diverse in every aspect, not just in terms of sort of gender and race, which are your usual diversity characteristics, aren't they? They've had a younger person, but to represent sort of a student perspective. I think in terms of from sectors, possibly, I'm not sure.
I just think that you need to own it. Like, you're doing amazing things, and we're in December now, so the purpose of these strategy sessions is to get clear on what it is that you truly want, because there is always a strategy of getting it. Just as absolutely. It is, if you want a dream job, if you want to have more impact, if you want to be just happy in general, there is a way of doing that. And it does always start from within, which is why I will always start with personal branding and values, and then what you're an expert at, and then practically what do you need to package and promote to prove to whoever it is that you need to, that you are the best person for that opportunity. And that really is the journey. You've been on such a journey, and
what's been achieved, Jude, what's been achieved in this time, when I think about it now, sitting here and like, wow, that was August. The difference in how I feel, and even my own professional and personal effectiveness, because I think you do have to take your own personal efficacy to work. You have to. And my effectiveness now, and my clarity, and my understanding of myself, my position in the sector, all of those things, I could have laboured at for years. I honestly think that to where, you know, where we were in August and where we are now. Just,
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So just in terms of, because you've described like the transformation that you've had career wise, but what does this mean like personally for you, of what it is that you, because obviously jobs mean different things, you know, it's good to be happy in that area of your life, but what impact does it have kind of for the other areas of your life, or the future goals that you have, or what is it that you can do?
Well, I think the whole process, like I say, the clarity and the awareness of self, I'd say that I've got from this process, and the awareness of my direction, even though I think I had it, it was there, but it's so clear, and I'm on a path to that now. And for me, I think you're right, what work means something different for different people, doesn't it? I love my sector and I love my job. And I think now I'm on that path where, you know, 5 to 10 years, I'll still be able to influence and contribute, and it will be on that national scale that I want, you know. So something that I've always wanted, that felt like it was just a dream, you know, a distant thing. I had no idea how to get there. Now I honestly feel that I'm on that path. And I'm headed in that direction. And what that will bring in terms of personal satisfaction is, do you know what I mean? You can't, the job's a job, but you know, from our sessions, there is something very personal about what I do, and me being in the education sector. So to fulfill that creates personal happiness, doesn't it? So the two things go hand in hand. And it's just making me think and go back to the start of this conversation about being stifled and how you're feeling. I was in a job in a sector that I loved, but actually I wasn't happy. I'd say I was happy, but I wasn't happy. I actually, you know, that I do a lot of yoga and meditation and other things to sort of support my well-being and myself personally. And I had a call a couple of weeks ago with somebody who I do some particular work with, and we're starting to work again. We worked together sort of earlier in the year when things were difficult and different, and we were speaking about where I am now, and she said she's noticed and can feel and tell that I'm in a different place. And she said, you know, you always used to say to me, you're happy in your job. And she said, I never said anything because it wasn't my place to. But I'd often think, really? Same sector. It's a pathway I needed to take. And actually now, the job that I have now, you know, some would say it's harder, it's more challenging, there's more responsibility, it's more demanding. But it's the right job and it's the right path. So in terms of being yourself in your life, I've never felt more connected between personal and professional life. And my life, you know, with all of these things I'm doing at the minute, my life's really quite chaotic. I realise sometimes I sit down at the end of the week like, oh my God, you know, I work down in London, I live in Nottingham, so I'm travelling down there, I'm away 3 days a week. My partner lives in Chesterfield, he has children, we have, you know, developing our life together. I have my family, I've got my masters, I've got these groups that I've spoken to you about that I'm involved in. There is so much going on. But it's all aligned correctly. You know?
And I mean,
and this feels less stressful and less challenging than when I had the other, just that one job.
I think it's being ready for all that comes. When you align, when you're truly aligned, all the opportunities will flow, because you're in a state of flow. Because when you're happy, you attract more stuff. And then it's about using your instincts to go, I'm going to go with that. That's not going to serve me right now.
That's not for me.
That's going to help me. But then it's about, it's great that you do yoga and meditation and you know about your well-being, because then it's about, okay, how am I going to balance all of this so that I'm not overwhelmed? And I honestly think that, you know, we will have to have another conversation, but I'm going to get a VA next year to help me manage my development.
We've talked about that, haven't we?
And it's like, there are tools, there are things that you can do to elevate but manage. And it might mean that you kind of put a little financial cost here, but the time that you get back is worth its weight in gold.
To be able to have the contribution in other ways.
Yeah.
In a fulfilling way.
It's just about streamlining, it's just about processes, just as you would if, you know, as you've got, you know, all of this when it comes to, like all of us do when it comes to work, but when it's to ourselves, it's like, I need to run my life a bit more like how I do at work. Like, my time, and you know, I'm going to have some gym time. I'm going to have some just sit down and do nothing time, and then I'm going to do my development stuff. So it's just really exciting, and it genuinely has been such a pleasure working with you. And you know, I just think that we're going to have like a little catch up, maybe even like Easter time or something next year. You're going to be like, oh, and I've done this and I've done that. And I'll be like, okay, New Year's. I think it's more like than that.
Thank you though. It wouldn't have happened, Judy, or you know, maybe it would have, because
it would have because
slower. We're hard workers. I'm a hard worker. It would have, but it would have just been in a very different way. I would have felt differently. It would have taken a long time, and you know, I never would have learned the techniques that I have and been able to represent myself and present myself, because there is a difference. I learned the difference between the two. How I can now if we hadn't done our work. And the thing is, like we've said, you know, there's so many companies out there that give you that script around preparing. I can't tell you how many of them I've read, but actually as professional people and as a, you know, professional woman, I don't really need somebody to tell me how to decipher a job description. I write job descriptions. I know how to do that, and I think that's what makes your work uniquely different.
Thank you.
And that's not what anybody needs. Anybody who's wanting to elevate and go to a next level, they're involved in recruitment anyway. They know that stuff. Why would we go away for someone to tell us that? But that's what I was doing for years.
It can sometimes.
And I think that's what the difference is.
I find.
That's the difference with what you do. It's very different, very current, and useful and meaningful. You know, it's actually had a really profound impact.
Thank you. As I say, you know, it's just a pleasure. Sometimes I have to pinch myself, like, this is what I do every day.
You are doing the right thing, honestly. Don't stop doing what you're doing. Keep helping people.
It's just amazing to do something that you're aligned to, and that's exactly what I want for the people that I work with. So I think that really shows the journey that you've been on. If anybody is unsure and thinking, will this work for me? Will you just say in like a nutshell what they can expect to happen if they join the Claim Your Dream Job at Interview Bootcamp?
A transformation in self, personally and professionally.
Wonderful. There you go. So thank you. I just
anytime. I've got time for you all day, every day.
Thank you so much. So thank you again. And then recording.
Thank you. Okay.